Hello and welcome to this video on distilling mead. Mead, or honey wine, is one of the oldest alcoholic beverages. At its simplest, mead is just honey and yeast, but it's often diluted with water. The simplest recipes may be honey and yeast, or honey, yeast and a little bit of water, but many recipes add more flavours. Even when you make a more flavoured mead, it is largely comparable in alcohol content. That is anywhere up to 20% alcohol by volume. 20% alcohol by volume, or 40 proof, is nearly twice as much alcohol as wine, 4 to 5 times as much alcohol as beer or cider. Despite being stronger than these common standard drinks, and on par with even some spirits, it's just not enough for some people. This is why they distill their mead. This practice is gaining some popularity. Despite that, it raises the question, does distilling actually help you concentrate the alcohol, which is the whole point of distilling? A significant problem with mead is also what makes it special. All of that honey. It is sugar and does not readily distill, or at least not through a column still. The problem with a column still is the combination of packing material, sugar, and alcohol. The sugars in honey will not be easily separated out from the mead. Even if you are able to do that, you then need to worry about the proteins and other content in that sugar, in the honey, that contribute to the flavours and left over in the mead. These will be denatured by any heat when distilling. This is similar to Maillard reactions in baking and other types of cooking. When done correctly, they add very desirable flavours. When done incorrectly, they taste completely off. You then need to worry about what will happen when the water is reduced. It can lead to the temperature skyrocketing. This will cause the honey and the sugars in it to begin burning if you are very unlucky. In some cases, if fate is choosing to favour you on that particular day, you might get something in a ballpark of rum. If you are unlucky, you're going to have a drink that tastes like burnt honey and nothing else. The second issue is that sugar is hydroscopic. This means that these sugars will try to hold on to any water that they can, and it means getting a clean fractional separation much harder. Every time the water begins to turn into a vapor, the sugars try and grab it and drag it back in, and this will mean that you have to put more heat and energy into the solution to separate out the alcohol and the water that goes with it. And this is why you have so much trouble. Finally, you have the packing material, and the issue here is that you run the risk of it being fouled by the mead mixture. If you do this anyway, you will get something that's more like vodka than anything else. You may, if you do a very good extraction and distillation process, get something with trace notes of the honey or mead-like flavour, possibly some of the aromatics or flavourful smells, but you're going to get something that is less like mead and more like vodka, which is generally not ideal. You can instead use a pot still like you would for most if not any other flavoured spirit. A pot still does not have any of the packing material, and as a result everything will flow out without any barriers. This allows you to collect fractions and blend them, or collect everything in one big batch. We strongly suggest the former, as it gives you more control over not only the flavours you get in the end, but the kind of flavours that you can make. If that does not interest you, then you can go for the latter and get whatever comes out. The second issue is the same again, and that is the hydroscopic sugar solution. This means the more water is released into the air inside of your still, or vaporizers, the more the honey will try to draw it back in. That is also going to shrink your fractions as they have more overlap. It will be harder to get clean and neat separation. You're going to have to go to great lengths and effort to try and get them to separate out more if that's what you want. Finally, you'll need to consider how distilling, and especially the pot still, may extract more botanicals. Those are the things that make it smell sweet and tasty. These will be condensed and they can add flavour to the aroma of your distillate. What you'll get is going to be less in line with vodka and more in line with a flavoured spirit like say whiskey. Because of the nature and how a pot still works, you'll find that the final result may also have more content in it, particularly sugars that will come out as you are distilling. These can create a haze-like effect. You can either cold crash your distillate, or you can filter them out to remove this if you so wish. Having distilled your mead, you should be able to get something around 60% alcohol by volume or 120 proof using a pot still. And depending on how you process it after this, you can get anything with a taste between something like cognac or even bourbon. This is often done by adding things like oak. You can increase the alcohol concentration further, but this is done by a combination of both pot distillation and column distillation. That can get you anywhere near as high as 90% alcohol by volume or 180 proof. The problem with this is that in gaining all of the alcohol, you will lose other benefits. The biggest and most important is going to be a lot of those flavors and aromatics. We would argue that it is largely a waste to distill your years-old mead, especially if it hasn't gone bad. This approach, however, is a means to repurpose oxidized mead. That is mead that for whatever reason has not fermented correctly or not aged very well. That mead will have very off flavors, and so is not necessarily a great option for drinking. Distilling it to extract all of the alcohol out, and then using the remaining sugar-like syrup solution for other purposes is entirely viable at that point. For example, you can try and preserve fruits and similar in the syrup like honey, just the same as you would with canning, while you get the very useful alcohol out of it. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it interesting, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please post any comments, questions, or suggestions you have below